Welcome. I kindly invite each one of you to collaborate in silence, concentrate on the words which will be done here, and offer the readings inside you to the Divine Mother, who, in the form of light. Let us chant Om. 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Aravindaya. Om Namo Nama Nirambikaye. O Lord, with full faith, love and surrender, we are ready for Thy victory. Om, peace, peace, peace. Prayers and meditations of the Mother. March 18th, 1914. Thou art perfect knowledge, absolute consciousness. He who unites with thee is omniscient, while the union lasts. But even before attaining this stage, he who has given himself to thee in all the sincerity of his being, with all his conscious will, he who has resolved to make every effort to help in the manifestation and triumph of thy divine law of love in himself and the whole field of his influence. Sees all things in his life change, and all circumstances begin to express thy law and assist his consecration. For him it is the best, the very best that always happens. And if in his intelligence there is still some obscurity, some ignorant desire which at times prevents him from becoming aware of it immediately, he recognizes sooner or later that a beneficent power seemed to protect him even for himself and secure for him conditions most favorable to his blossoming and transfiguration, his integral conversion and utilization. As soon as one becomes conscious and convinced of this, one can no longer worry about future circumstances or the turn events take. It is with perfect serenity that one does at every moment what one thinks best, convinced that the best too is sure to come from it, even if it is not the result which we, with our limited reasoning, expected from it. That is why, Lord, our heart is light, our thought in repose. That is why we turn to Thee in all confidence and say peacefully, may Thy will be done in a true harmony is realized. Letters on Yoga, Sri Aurobindo, the system of the chakras. The centers or chakras are 7 in number. Number 1, the 1,000-petaled lotus on top of the head. 2, in the middle of the forehead, the Ajna chakra, will, vision, dynamic thought. 3, throat center, externalizing mind. 4, heart lotus, emotional center. The psychic is behind it. 5, navel, higher vital proper. Navel, lower vital. 7, Muladhara, physical. All these centers are in the middle of the body. They are supposed to be attached to the spinal cord, but in fact, all the settings are in the subtle body, Sukshma Deha. Though one has the feeling of their activities as if in the physical body when the consciousness is awake. In the process of our yoga, the centers have each a fixed psychological use and general function which base all their special powers and functionings. The Mooladhara governs the physical down to the subconscious. The abdominal center, Swadhisthana, governs the lower vital. The navel center, Nabhi Padma or Manipura, governs the larger vital. The heart center, Hrit Padma or Anahata, governs the emotional being. The throat center, Vishuddha, governs the expressive and externalizing mind. The center between the eyebrows, Ajna chakra, governs the dynamic mind, will, vision, mental formation. The thousand-petaled lotus, Sahasradala, above commands the higher thinking mind, houses the still, higher illumined mind, and at the highest opens to the intuition through which or else by an overflooding directness the overmind can have with the rest communication or an immediate contact. I never heard of two lotuses in the heart center, but it is the seat of two powers. In front, the higher vital or emotional being, behind and concealed the soul or psychic being. One can speak of the chakras only in reference to yoga. In ordinary people, the chakras are not open. It is only when they do sadhana that the chakras open. For the chakras are the centers of the inner consciousness and belong originally to the subtle body. So much as is active in ordinary people is very little, for in them it is the outer consciousness that is active. These centers of consciousness, the chakras. It is by their opening that the yogic or inner consciousness develops. Otherwise, you are bound to the ordinary outer consciousness. Prayer to Sri Aurobindo. To thee who has been the material envelope of our Master, to thee our infinite gratitude. Before thee who has done so much for us, who has worked, struggled, suffered, hoped, endured so much, before thee who hast willed all, attempted all, prepared, achieved all for us. Before thee we bow down and implore that we may never forget, even for a moment, all we owe to thee. Prayer to Mother India. O our Mother, O Soul of India, Mother, who hast never forsaken thy children, even in the days of darkest depression, even when they turned away from thy voice, served other masters, and denied thee. Now, when they have arisen, and the light is on thy face in this dawn of thy liberation, in this great hour we salute thee. Guide us, so that the horizon of freedom opening before us may also a horizon of true greatness and of thy true life in the community of the nations. Guide us so that we may be always on the side of great ideals and show to men thy true visage as a leader in the ways of the Spirit and a friend. and helper of all the peoples. Talks of the mother. Human birth. Last week I spoke of birth and how a soul enters into a body. I told you that the body is formed in a very unsatisfactory manner, almost in the case of every person. The exceptions are so rare that one need not mention them. I told you that because of this obscure birth, man is made to carry with him quite a bundle of things which later on he has generally to get rid of if he wishes to progress truly in life. I told you in effect that you are made to come by force. Conditions are imposed upon you by force, and by force you obey the laws of heredity. Now I am asked, who or what is it that forces? I shall answer as clearly as possible. The body is formed by a man and a woman who are the father and the mother. These, when they form, the body have no means to ask of the being whom they are bringing into the world whether he likes it or whether it is agreeable to his destiny. They impose upon the body by the force of necessity an atavism, an environment, and subsequently an education which are almost always obstacles to future growth. A growing soul or a soul full grown taking birth in a body has to fight against these circumstances that are forced upon him by the animal birth in order to find his true path and discover his own self in its fullness. Now, a fully formed conscious soul wanting to take birth looks generally from its psychic domain for a corresponding psychic light upon some place on earth. In its previous birth, before leaving the earthly atmosphere, it chose, as the result of its total experience in that life, the condition of its future life, not in details, but more or less in a general way. Such cases are very exceptional. We are here, perhaps, can speak of it, but for the majority of the human population, even among the most well educated, the question does not arise. Normally, we are dealing with a soul that is growing, which is in the process of its growth. Now, there are all the stages of growth from the tiniest spark that is becoming a little flame of light up to the fully conscious and fully formed being. This ascent of the soul, in order to become a mature conscious being, having its own will and deciding its own destiny, takes thousands of years. In any case, even in the very best of situations, when a soul comes down consciously and when it has consciously worked in the formation of the physical body, so long as the body is formed in the usual animal way, the soul will have to struggle. And to correct all that comes from this human animality. So I say, because of the way in which the body is brought into being at present, you have to face innumerable difficulties, coming more or less from the subconscious, that rise to the surface with which you have to fight if you want to be free entirely and develop normally. Hymn to Durga by Sri Aurobindo. Mother Durga, giver of force and love and knowledge, terrible art thou in thy own self of might. Mother beautiful and fierce, in the battle of life, in India's battle, we are warriors commissioned by thee. Mother, give to our heart and mind a Titan's strength, a Titan's energy, to our soul and intelligence a God's character and knowledge. Mother Durga, we are thy children. Through thy grace, by thy influence, may we become fit for the great work, for the great ideal. Mother, destroy our smallness, our selfishness, our fear. Mother Durga, extend wide the power of yoga. We are thy Aryan children. Develop in us again the lost teaching, character, strength of intelligence, faith and devotion, force of austerity, power of chastity, and true knowledge. Bestow all that upon the world to help mankind. Appear, O Mother of the world, dispel all ills. Synthesis of Yoga, The Planes of Our Existence by Sri Aurobindo. If the Purusha in us has thus to become, by union with its highest self, the Divine Purusha, the knower, Lord, free enjoyer of its Prakriti, it cannot be done, evidently, by dwelling on the present plane of our being. For that is the material plane in which the reign of Prakriti is complete. There the divine Purusha is entirely hidden in the blinding surge of her activities, in the gross pomp of her workings, and the individual soul emerging from her involution of spirit in matter, subject in all its activities to its entangling in the material and vital instruments, is unable to experience the divine freedom. What it calls it freedom and mastery is only the subtle subjection of mind to Prakriti, which is lighter indeed, nearer to the possibility of liberty and rule than the gross subjection of vital and material things like the animal, plant, and metal, but is still not real freedom and mastery. Therefore, we had to speak of different planes of our consciousness and of the spiritual planes of mental being. For if these did not exist, the liberation of the embodied being would have been impossible here on earth. He would have had to wait and at most to prepare himself for seeking it in other worlds and in a different kind of physical or spiritual embodiment, less obstinately sealed in its shell of material experience. In the ordinary yoga of knowledge, it is only necessary to recognize two planes of our consciousness, the spiritual and the materialized mental. The pure reason standing between these two views them both, cuts through the illusion of the phenomenal world, exceeds the materialized mental plane, sees the reality of the spiritual, and then will of the individual Purusha unifying itself with this poise of knowledge, rejects the lower and draws back to the supreme plane, dwells there, loses mind and body, sheds life from it, and merges itself in the Supreme Purusha, is delivered from individual existence. It knows that this is not the whole truth of our existence, which is much more complex. It knows there are many planes, but it disregards them or pays little attention to them because they are not essential to this liberation. They indeed rather hamper it, because to live on them brings new attractive psychical experiences, psychical enjoyments, psychical powers, a new world of phenomenal knowledge, the pursuit of which creates stumbling blocks in the way of its one object, emergence in Brahman and brings a succession of innumerable wayside snares on the road which leads to God. But since we accept world existence, and for us all world existence is Brahman and full of the presence of God, these things can have no terrors for us. Whatever dangers of distraction there may be, we have to face and overcome them. If the world and our own existence are so complex, we must know and embrace their complexities in order that our self-knowledge and our knowledge of dealings of Purusha with its Prakriti may be complete. If there are many planes, we have to possess them all for the divine. Even as we seek to possess spiritually and transform our ordinary poise of mind, life, and body. Savitri, page 298. Book 2, the book of the Traveler of the Worlds. Canto 15, the Kingdoms of the Greater Knowledge. After a measureless moment of the soul, again returning to these surface fields, out of the timeless depths where he had sunk, he heard once more the slow tread of the hours. All once perceived and lived was far away. Himself was to himself his only seen. Above the witness and his universe, he stood in a realm of boundless silences, awaiting the voice that spoke and built the worlds. A light was round him wide and absolute, a diamond purity of eternal sight. A consciousness lay still, devoid of forms, free, wordless, uncoerced by sign or rule. Forever content with only being and bliss, a sheer existence lived in its own peace. On the single spirit's bare and infinite ground, out of the sphere of mind he had arisen. He had left the reign of nature's hues and shades. He dwelt in his self's colorless purity. It was a plane of undetermined spirit that could be a zero or round sum of things, a state in which all ceased and all began. All it became that figures the absolute, a high vast peak when spirit could see the worlds, calm's wide epiphany, wisdom's mute home, a lonely station of omniscience, a diving board of the eternal spar, a wide floor in the house of all delight. Here came the thought that passes beyond thought. Hear the still voice which our listening cannot hear, the knowledge by which the knower is the known, the love in which beloved and lover are one. All stood in an original plenitude, hushed and fulfilled before they could create the glorious dream of their universal acts. Here was engendered the spiritual birth. Here closed the finite scroll to the infinite. Prayer to the Spirit of Aurobindo. Dear Mother, we as a family, a linking thread, we all connected and we are offering our aspiration. Give us the peace of perfect disinterestedness, the peace that makes thy presence felt and thy intervention effective, the peace that is ever victorious over all bad will and every obscurity. Grant, we implore thee, that all in our being may be identified with thee. May we be nothing else any more than a flame of love, utterly awakened to a supreme realization of thee. Mother, please bless us. Let us carry the joy, peace through this beautiful collaboration. And in thy name we celebrate the birthday of the coming week. We offer them at your feet. Greetings from Aurobindo. Let us chant Om in gratitude. Thank you, Mother. Thanks each one of you for your presence and your collective aspiration. We'll see you next week.